Hey folks, my name is Ian-Khara Ellasante. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm a faculty member in Gender and Sexuality Studies and Africana at Bates College. I'm thrilled to be your guide as we consider the Maine Humanities Council's big question, what if? My hopes and goals are to help frame our discussion by offering some tools or lenses through which we can think through this question and the massive potential that it holds. So the question of what if is at once so simple, but it's also pretty complex. First of all, it engages our imaginations because it's pretty hard to speculate about something that has not yet manifested without tapping into imagination, at least a little bit. One great thing about imagination, of many great things about imagination, is that it's not in short supply. It's something to which we all have equal access. Have you ever taken the time to consider how often you ask yourself or others questions like what if? How often you're asking what if questions throughout the day, throughout your life? Um, if I were to guess, I'd guess that we're all very often asking such questions, even if we are then immediately playing out or living out the outcomes. Um, so for instance, what if I take a left turn here, despite Siri insisting that I stay on this road? What if I hit the snooze button just one more time? What if I say hi to that person? What if I order takeout tonight instead of cooking dinner at home? What if I send this email to my boss? What if I have Pop-Tarts and coffee for breakfast today? What if I swipe right? Other times, we ask these what if questions to help us imagine scenarios in a less immediate future. So, for instance, what if I come out to my family on my birthday? What if I save up for that new couch? Um, what if I wind up with 10 grandchildren? What if I write a book? What if I change careers? What if I finish that degree? And we also use what if questions to reimagine the past. What if I had taken that trip? What if I had been born in a different city? What if I had never gone on that date? What if I'd majored in biology instead of English? What if I had lived in the 18th century? What if I had visited my grandmother more often? What do these types of questions do for us? What is the power and potential of what if? Clearly, not all what if questions are articulations of hopes or wishes, but some are. When we apply the power of our imagination, do we bring these hopes and wishes closer to reality? How does what if help us make meaning of our current experience, of our current lived reality? And what about imagining in community alongside others and other voices? How does that change the experience from our solo imagination sessions? I don't know about you, if you ever have an imagination session. I like to sometimes. But when we're imagining together with others, how is the experience different? Does imagining together bring it closer to being made real? What does it give us to just imagine something new or different? even if it's not something we can believe will ever actually happen. It sounds like I'm asking a lot of questions here, and I am, but let's shift gears now a bit to try to make this all a little more concrete. So I want to use Afrofuturism as a frame to help us think about the power of what if, especially in the ways that we can imagine the future and reimagine the past, and in so doing, make meaning of the present. So first of all, what is Afrofuturism? So to answer that question first, I want us to hear from Yatasha Womack, who's the author of Afrofuturism, The World of Black Sci-Fi and Fantasy Culture. And this is a clip from a keynote that she gave in 2007. And in the short clip that I'll play here, she is defining Afrofuturism.
But it intersects the imagination, technology, Black culture, liberation, and mysticism. As an artistic aesthetic, it bridges literature, music, visual arts, film, and dance. And as a mode of self-healing and liberation, it's the use of the imagination that is most significant because it helps people to transform their circumstances. Imagining oneself in the future creates agency.
All right. So as you heard there from her, Afrofuturism refers to a dynamic and broadening umbrella. I mean, we have here this connection between literature, music, film, visual arts, dance, and technology, all in the realm of imagination. And so therefore, we can think of Afrofuturism as designating a creative aesthetic. It also describes a methodology and an epistemology that envisions Black people in an imagined future, despite the trauma of the past and the adversity of the present. So together, we are going to use Afrofuturism and its conceptual boundlessness as a model for how to imagine all the possibilities of what if, how to imagine futures, how to reimagine histories, and how to challenge assumptions of what is and what is not possible. So first of all, how does Afrofuturism help us imagine a future? Well, one way is via Black speculative literature. Now, you might hear this and think of it as akin to the genres of science fiction and fantasy, and in many ways, it is. And in many other ways, it is very much its own thing. Let me share screens with you once again. All right, so when you hear Black speculative literature, this might bring to mind for you authors like Octavia Butler. You might also think of Samuel R. Delany, Nalo Hopkinson, Tananarive Due, among others. Now, among Afrofuturism's wide array of instruments, Black speculative literature is often given a lot of prominence. It's one that we think of a lot. I often think of Octavia Butler first and foremost when someone mentions Afrofuturism. And mainstream speculative literature has historically excluded the experiences of the African diaspora from its storylines, from the ways in which it imagines the future. Afrofuturist authors, however, seek to address these omissions by centering Black characters, as Susanna Morris says, to quote, be the agent and subject of the future and not relegated to the primeval past, used as props or pawns, or disappeared altogether. So whether in the future, a reimagined past, or a reclaimed and re-envisioned present, these authors represent the textures and conditions of Black lives, ranging from the utterly dystopian to the richly utopian. And now, acknowledging that for many, the notion that there are actually Black people and Black cultures in the future is a strange concept. Black speculative literature challenges the assumption that the future is necessarily white and necessarily Western, and it insists that audiences themselves interrogate the vastness of what is possible and for whom it is presumed to be impossible. So, how then does Afrofuturism help us reimagine the past? So, with a name like Afrofuturism, you would probably think that there would be less attention to the past, less interest in considering the past. And sure, Afrofuturism involves technology and futuristic imagery and sounds and speculative ideas. However, Afrofuturist creative practice is deeply attuned to the history of people and cultures of the African diaspora. As Alondra Nelson points out, quote, these works represent new directions in the study of African diaspora culture that are grounded in the histories of Black communities, rather than seeking to sever all connections to them, end quote. And in so doing, Afrofuturism encourages a reclamation and a reimagining of these pasts. So looking simultaneously forward and backward, Afrofuturism is able to bridge the past, the present, and the future, often in some very nonlinear ways. And it offers the idea, to quote Yatasha Womack, of, quote, time as another dimension through which to reimagine identity, end quote. With this emphasis on continuity and interdependence of the past, present, and future, Afrofuturism shares an overlap. It has this conceptual overlap with the notion of indigenous futurity, which Muskogee Creek author Laura Harjo describes as, quote, the enactment of theories and practices that activate our ancestors' unrealized possibilities. The act of living out the futures we wish for in a contemporary moment, and the creation of the conditions for these futures, end quote. And as an interpretation of the expression, this expression that I love, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, this tendency of Afrofuturism to orient toward the past is the realization of a place in a long lineage and of an interrelationship with our ancestors. The understanding that in the present, we are actually our ancestors' futures, which certainly can offer a great deal of meaning to our present lives. This is also a reminder that, like us, our forebears hoped and dreamed and invented and imagined futures that are were far more vivid and free than the lives that they lived. They certainly asked and imagined their share of what if questions. Now, the poet Seku Sundiata probably illustrates it best in these lines from his poem, Urban Music, which I'll share with you.
Baby, I can break it down to you like this. We dreamed you black in your badness, made you up out of poems and lies and words to live by. And we ourselves was dreamed, most likely by some slave. Whenever they got a little space to climb into their heads and be free. And when they closed their eyes, what did they see? They saw you. Yeah. They saw me. Talk about urban music, baby, this is it.
Yeah, that's the good stuff. So we are indeed our ancestors' futures, their wildest dreams even. And you know what? I want to make sure that you could see those lines, that you know what Sundiata was saying there. So let me share this with you really quickly. Yeah, so these are the lines that I pulled from that poem, Urban Music. Yes. So yes, people, we are indeed our ancestors' futures. We are their wildest dreams. And likewise, Afrofuturism invites us to be accountable to subsequent generations as the dreams that we're dreaming and the deeds that we are living out in our present realities, the what if questions that we are asking and playing out, they form the futures that subsequent generations will inhabit and live in. And this is something that can definitely give more meaning and significance to our everyday lived realities. So, as we see here, Afrofuturism serves as a really good lens for considering the potential of what if. And as we speculate this way, even on the most mundane what if questions, we use our imaginations as tools of creation to help us envision future possibilities and even to reimagine aspects of our past. So I'm looking forward to the next set of recordings in which I will be exploring together with you the big question of what if there were no gender? And I will see you then.